Welcome to Shadowed Tales Archive, a place where forgotten stories breathe again, where whispers crawl from the cracks of reality, and fear finds a voice. Turn off the lights, put on your headphones, and listen closely, because some tales were never meant to be told. Tonight's story is titled The Whisper Beneath the Pines. Let the shadows speak.
Part 1. Echoes in the Playground. "Don't go near the pine line," Mrs. Kemp said, clutching her clipboard with both hands like it might shield her from the kids' chaos. "That edge marks school property. Beyond that, it's just, well, don't." The warning went unnoticed by most. Third graders didn't pay much attention to imaginary lines in the dirt. But for Oliver, those words stuck, like splinters. He stood alone by the swings, his game console tucked beneath his sweatshirt to keep it hidden. The others screamed, laughed, tackled each other like nothing bad could ever touch them. Oliver was different. He always had one eye on the tree line, where the pines grew too close together and the air smelled too old for a schoolyard. The forest felt like it shouldn't be there, like the town was built around it by mistake. He wasn't the kind of kid who got invited to birthday parties or partnered up in class without a teacher stepping in. Oliver's best friend was his handheld console and a stack of paper Pokemon cards too worn for trading. When his parents argued, and they always argued, he'd sink into his games and let the music drown out the voices. Lately they fought more often. His dad wanted to move. His mom didn't. Somewhere in between, Oliver got lost. Recess was halfway through when he first noticed something strange. A shimmer like heat off pavement pulsed near the forest edge. At first he thought it was a trick of light. Then it shimmered again, only this time a silhouette lingered behind the trees. It wasn't a teacher, not a kid. Too tall, too still. Oliver blinked and it was gone. The next time he saw it, he was in his bedroom. It was late. 11:17 p.m., glowing green on his cheap digital alarm clock. His mom's muffled voice leaked through the wall. "You never listen to him. You just disappear into work and expect him to understand." His dad grumbled something back, words soaked in bourbon. Oliver rolled over, eyes heavy. He opened his DS again, scrolling through the Pokédex just to look busy, just to feel control over something. He hovered on a page about a psychic monster that could influence dreams. Something about the image unsettled him. Not the way monsters usually did. This one looked like it was watching him. The console screen flickered. Not a battery issue. He had it charged. It flickered again. Then a sound, gentle, melodic, almost like humming, spilled from the speaker. Not game music. Something softer. Older. He closed the DS. The humming didn't stop. "Oliver." The voice came from outside. He shot up, heart jackhammering against his ribs. He rushed to the window and peeled back the curtain. The street was empty. His bike lay on its side beneath the porch light. The pines loomed at the far end, black silhouettes against deeper night. Nothing. But the whisper had said his name. The next morning he found a pine cone on his windowsill. Not inside the screen. Not outside. Right in the middle. Still sticky with sap. Oliver didn't say anything. He didn't want to be the weird kid who talked about ghosts and trees. But he started watching the forest more closely. By Wednesday he'd started seeing something. Just glimpses. A shape between the trees. A pale figure standing just past the school's edge. Always still. Always watching. It never moved when anyone else looked. Only when he was alone. "Hey, freak." Jace Weber knocked the lunch tray out of Oliver's hands. It hit the cafeteria floor with a plastic slap, applesauce bursting like a popped blister. "Oops," Jace sneered. His pack of followers snickered behind him. Oliver didn't reply. He just bent down and picked up the tray, ignoring the way applesauce smeared across his hoodie sleeve. When he sat at the far table, his table, he didn't cry. He didn't speak. But he did whisper something under his breath. Not in anger. Not even really on purpose. Just a whisper. I wish they'd leave me alone. That night the whisper came back. Come with me. Oliver sat bolt upright. The air in his room felt dense, like someone had breathed all the oxygen out. You don't have to be alone. The whisper was so close. It felt like it was inside his head. But it wasn't frightening this time. It was warm, familiar, like a song his mother used to hum when he was small. He got out of bed, walked to the window again. The pine cone was gone, but now something was carved into the glass. 3 words, "You are chosen." Part 2, The Stranger in the Pines. Oliver didn't tell anyone about the message on the glass. He had wiped it clean before sunrise, careful not to let his mom see it. If she noticed the sap stains on his pajama sleeves, she didn't say anything. She barely looked at him during breakfast anyway. His dad had already left, or maybe hadn't come home at all. Just another Thursday. At school, the classroom felt colder than usual. Miss Farrell, their teacher, wore a tight smile and a heavy cardigan as she reviewed fractions on the whiteboard. Oliver didn't hear a word. His eyes kept drifting to the windows, where the pine trees stood silent in the distance. They didn't sway, not even in the breeze. It was as if they were holding their breath. At lunch, Jace didn't bother him. That should have been a good thing, but it wasn't. Jace just sat at his usual table, staring off toward the woods with a strange look on his face. His sandwich sat untouched. His fists were clenched so tight his knuckles looked white. Oliver caught him mumbling once, just under his breath. "It's still singing? Oliver?" He jumped. Miss Farrell stood over his table, looking concerned. "You've barely touched your food. Everything okay?" He nodded quickly. She hesitated, eyes softening. "If you ever need to talk, I'm here." That part was worse than Jace. She meant it, but Oliver couldn't explain what was wrong, not without sounding crazy. He just gave her a small smile and said, "Thanks." That night, Oliver couldn't sleep. He kept hearing the whisper again, only now it wasn't just a whisper. It was music, not from his game. Not from the hallway or the wind or the TV downstairs. This was something older, sadder, like a lullaby half forgotten. He pulled the blankets tighter around himself, but the tune crept under the fabric and into his bones. Then came the voice, "You're almost ready?" The next morning he found something under his pillow. A small carved figurine, wooden, smoothed by hand. It looked like a child. Faceless, arms outstretched. There was no way it had been there before. Oliver dropped it like it burned and kicked it under his bed. He didn't look back. That Friday they had recess early. The cold made the other kids run and scream to stay warm. Oliver didn't join them. He just sat on the bench closest to the forest, his hood pulled up and hands jammed into his coat pockets. Then he saw him. A man. Or something like a man. He stood just past the tree line, tall, thin, with limbs too long and skin too pale. His clothes looked old, like something out of a photo from the 1800s. But the most terrifying thing was his face, or the lack of one. Smooth skin stretched where eyes, nose, and mouth should have been. Yet somehow, Oliver knew exactly where the man was looking. Straight at him. The whisper came back, louder now, no longer hiding in corners of his mind. "Do you see me now? You're not alone anymore." The Pinesinger. The name bloomed in his thoughts, uninvited. He didn't know where it came from, only that it was right. "Hey." It was Miss Farrell. She ran up, waving one arm as she crossed the field. Oliver blinked. The Pinesinger was gone. Just pines. Just wind. "You were staring at the woods," she said, crouching beside him. "Is someone out there?" He didn't answer. "Oliver, listen to me. When I was your age, a boy disappeared from this school. His name was Aaron Fields. He wandered into the woods during recess. They never found him." Oliver's breath hitched. "Sometimes," Miss Farrell continued, "I think I hear singing out there. A song no one remembers. When I see kids sitting alone like that, I get nervous. Do you hear it too?" Oliver whispered. She looked at him, startled. "I think we should go inside," she said softly. That night, Oliver locked every window in his room, closed the blinds, shoved his dresser against the door. But none of it mattered. At 2:44 a.m., the music returned. No longer soft, no longer far. It was coming from inside the house. He crept out of bed, his feet bare against the cold hardwood floor. The song tugged at him like invisible strings, leading him downstairs. The living room was dark, but he didn't need a light. The front door was open. Wind stirred the curtains. Pine needles coated the doormat. And in the yard, under the sickle of moonlight, stood the Pinesinger, waiting. "Come now, child. The forest remembers you." Oliver backed away slowly. His breath came in short, rapid bursts. He shut the door, locked it, pushed the couch in front of it for good measure. Then he ran to his mother's room. She was awake, sitting on the bed with her arms wrapped around herself. Makeup streaks stained her cheeks. "Mom," he whispered. She didn't look up. "Did you hear the music too?" he asked. She turned to him slowly, her eyes glassy. Then she smiled, a sad, distant smile. "Your father used to hear it," she said, "before he stopped coming home." Oliver's stomach dropped. She reached up and brushed the hair from his eyes. "Go to sleep, baby. The song always stops by morning." But it didn't. It never stopped again. Part 3. What the Woods Remember. Oliver didn't go to school the next day. His mom said he had a fever, but she didn't take his temperature. She didn't call the nurse. She just stared out the kitchen window with a half-empty mug of tea that had gone cold an hour earlier. "You stay home today," she said. "Rest." "Okay." She didn't look him in the eye when she said it. Oliver didn't argue. The music hadn't stopped. It was quieter in the morning, but always there, lingering beneath the noise of the refrigerator, the creak of floorboards, even the birds outside. It was in the silence between things, and it was getting louder again. He sat on the couch, bundled in a blanket, holding his DS, but not playing. He stared at the black screen, watching his reflection. His eyes looked different, darker, tired in a way he didn't understand. At some point he fell asleep and dreamed. The woods were deeper in his dream, taller trees, blacker shadows. He wandered between the trunks, bare feet sinking into the soft moss. The sky above was a bruised purple and pine needles fell like snow. Ahead of him stood a group of children, maybe 10 of them, all facing away, all silent. They were humming, not the same tune as the Pinesinger, something older, slower. One child turned. Her eyes were hollow, mouth sewn shut with thin silver wire. But still she hummed, still she swayed. Oliver woke with a start. He was still on the couch, still in the blanket, but something was wrong. The DS was on the floor, open. On the screen, a figure stood in a pixelated forest, one that hadn't been part of the game before. The sprite didn't move, but it was watching him. He snapped the device shut and threw it across the room. Then he curled tighter under the blanket, whispering to himself, "It's not real. It's not real. It's just a dream." But he already knew that wasn't true. That evening, Miss Farrell called. Oliver heard his mom on the phone, standing in the hallway with her voice hushed. "She said you haven't been yourself," she told him afterward, "that you've been seeing things." Oliver stared at her. You believe her? His mother looked away. I don't know what I believe anymore. She sat beside him, wringing her hands. When your dad first started hearing things, I thought he was just overwhelmed, stressed. But he would stare at the trees like they were whispering to him. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Then he started walking into the forest at night. Said he felt drawn to something. She closed her eyes. One morning he didn't come back. Oliver's throat felt tight. Why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't want to scare you. He stood up. It's too late. That night, Oliver didn't sleep. He sat by the window with a flashlight and a baseball bat. The moon hung low and yellow above the tree line. Clouds moved slowly across its face like dragging shadows. And in the woods between the trunks he saw lights, tiny ones, like lanterns, dozens of them, flickering, moving, and he heard them, children, singing. Saturday morning he went back to school, not for class, just to get closer to the woods. He stood at the edge of the soccer field where the grass grew wild and untamed. The pine trees pressed against the chain-link fence like they were listening. Then a voice behind him. You shouldn't be here. He turned. Jace. The bully looked pale, smaller than usual. His hoodie was stained and he had scratches on his face like he'd run through thorns. They don't like it when you watch them, Jace muttered. Oliver narrowed his eyes. Who? The others. Jace pointed to the woods. They whisper when you sleep. They remember who listens. Oliver took a step forward. What are you talking about? Jace grabbed his arm. Don't go in there. Oliver yanked free. Why do you care? Jace didn't answer. He just turned and walked away, muttering to himself. They remember. They always remember. Back home, Oliver did what any desperate kid would do. He searched online. Not just Pinesinga, that gave him nothing. But when he typed "children disappear Pines whisper," something came up. A local forum post. 10 years old. Archive. Strange singing near Edgewood Elementary. Anyone else hear it? The thread had only 3 replies. One was from someone named Fields 1972. It said, my brother vanished behind those trees in 1984. He said he had a friend named the Pinesinger. Said he sang lullabies made of memory. One night he didn't come home. No body, no trail, but I still hear the song. Sometimes I think I'm next. Oliver stared at the screen. His hands were shaking. Aaron Fields. That was the name Miss Farrell had said. He clicked the user profile. Account deleted. That night, the song came from the closet. Not outside. Not the hall. Inside his room. Oh, clear. Like someone humming with their lips against the wood. Oliver stood frozen in bed, staring at the closet door. It creaked open. An inch. Then 2. A shadow moved inside, then stopped, and whispered, he remembers you. Part 4, Threads of the Forgotten. The whisper didn't stop at the closet. After that night, Oliver began to notice something else. People were starting to forget. It began with small things. His teacher mispronounced his name, even though he'd been in her class for months. His lunch wasn't packed anymore. Not because his mom forgot, but because she didn't remember that he liked peanut butter. Then it got worse. On Monday morning when he arrived at school, no one looked at him. Not just the way they used to ignore him. No one saw him at all. He walked past Jace, who was laughing with a group of boys by the lockers. Nothing. He waved his hand. Jace blinked, like trying to focus, but then turned away again. It was like Oliver was slowly being erased. At home, his mother was on the phone, her voice hushed and trembling. I think I'm losing time again. I woke up in the kitchen holding a knife. I don't remember going downstairs. Pause. No, I'm not drinking again, it's not like that. She saw Oliver and jumped like he was a stranger, then forced a smile. Sorry, baby. Just work stuff. Oliver didn't believe her. He didn't believe she believed herself. That night, he stood at the back door for a long time. The porch light flickered. Beyond it, the pines swayed ever so gently, like they were breathing. The music called to him again. But it wasn't urgent now. It was gentle, patient, welcoming. He stepped outside, down the porch stairs, barefoot. The grass was cold and slick with dew. He passed the shed, past the overgrown garden, stopped at the edge of the woods. The fence was broken in one place, bent inward as if something had walked through it. Not out. Oliver hesitated. Then he stepped across. The world changed. The forest wasn't like before. It was too quiet. No crickets, no wind, just the crunch of pine needles underfoot and the low, endless tune floating through the air. The trees were wrong too, bent inward like arches in a cathedral. And the sky above? Gone. Just blackness, as if the canopy itself had swallowed the stars. He walked deeper. The forest never resisted. It welcomed. Eventually, the trees opened into a wide clearing. At its center stood a circle of stones, tall, ancient things, covered in carvings that moved when he looked too long. They pulsed with a rhythm, like breathing, or a heartbeat. A figure stood inside the circle, but it wasn't the pine singer. Not yet. It was a boy, 10, maybe 11. Same age as Oliver. Same haircut, same build, but pale, dusty, not quite alive. He turned slowly as if moving through thick syrup. His voice was dry and hollow. Are you the new one? Oliver's voice caught in his throat. I don't know. The boy smiled. Not cruel, not kind, just tired. They always send one at a time. Oliver stepped closer. The carvings on the stones whispered in languages he didn't understand but somehow recognized. What is this place? The boy tilted his head. This is where the Pinesinger listens. To what? The boy's eyes went glassy. To everything we forgot. Another voice came from the trees. Soft, familiar, wrong. Oliver. He turned. His father stood at the edge of the clearing. Same flannel coat, same beard, same tired eyes. Dad. Oliver whispered. The boy behind him didn't move. That's not him, he said. Not really. But Oliver took a step anyway. Then another. Why did you leave? He asked. His father didn't answer, just opened his arms. Come home, son. Tears welled in Oliver's eyes. He didn't remember crying, but they were there. I missed you, he said. I know. The man stepped forward. Oliver froze. His father's feet didn't touch the ground. His shadow didn't fall in the right direction. And when he smiled, his mouth was too wide. You're not my dad, Oliver whispered. The smile stayed, but I remember being him. The Pinesinger stepped from the illusion like peeling a mask. Limbs too long, skin pale as wax, face still smooth, still featureless, except now there was movement beneath the skin, as though hundreds of mouths pressed from the inside. You remembered me, the Pinesinger said, though the voice came from nowhere. And now I can remember you. Oliver stumbled backward. The boy in the circle grabbed his arm. Don't run. I have to. There's nowhere to go. You crossed the threshold. You're in the memory hollow now. The Pinesinger moved closer. The humming grew louder. The stones pulsed faster. The air grew thick with voices, not whispers anymore, but pleas, sobs, and songs sung in forgotten languages. You were supposed to be lost, the Pinesinger said, but something in you remembered, something strong. Oliver's head pounded. He saw flashes, memories that weren't his. Children walking into the woods and never leaving. Lanterns swinging on branches made of bone. A lullaby sung by mouths sewn shut. "Why me?" Oliver cried. The pine singer stopped. "Because you want to be forgotten. And those are the ones who stay." Suddenly the ground shook. Not violently, just enough to feel alive. The boy's grip tightened. "There's still time," he said, "but not much. You can break the song if you anchor your memory." Anchor it to what? Someone who remembers you. Oliver's eyes widened. His mom. "But she's forgetting," he said. The boy nodded. "Then you have to remind her. Before the forest finishes the song." The pine singer shrieked. It wasn't a human sound, not even an animal one. It was the sound of a world tearing, of memory unraveling like a ripped page. The circle of stones cracked. Black roots erupted from the ground, slashing toward Oliver. He ran. Through the trees, through the song, through time. He ran until the stars returned overhead, until the wind touched his skin again, until he fell through the broken fence, scraped his knees and gasped for breath, for memory, for something that still felt real. He was home, but the whisper followed him, still soft, still singing. Part 5. The Unraveling. Oliver didn't sleep when he got home. He couldn't. His legs were cut, his breath shallow, and his heart kept punching the inside of his chest like it wanted out. But the worst part, the thing that chilled him the most, was the mirror. When he passed by it in the hallway, his reflection hesitated. A half second too long. A different blink, as if something else was watching through his eyes. He slammed the bathroom door and ran water until the pipes groaned. He scrubbed the dirt off his hands, but no matter how hard he tried, the sap wouldn't come off his palms. Sticky, black, like memory tar. Downstairs, his mother was in the living room, but she wasn't watching TV. She was staring at the wedding photo on the mantel, fingers trembling, a glass of wine forgotten in her lap. Oliver approached slowly. "Mom?" She blinked. Do you hear music?" she asked. Her voice was too calm, like she wasn't asking him but herself. Oliver sat beside her, forcing his voice steady. "I think something is trying to take you." She laughed once, small and sharp. "Too late." He grabbed her hand. "You have to remember me, please." "I always remember you, baby," she said, smiling, but it was hollow. "Empty. Do you remember my name?" Her smile faded. Her eyes clouded. I know it. I know it starts with a J, right?" Oliver's blood ran cold. "No," he said. "No, it's Oliver." She looked confused, then scared, like she just realized she was forgetting her own son. He stood and rushed to the kitchen drawer, rummaged through old photos, report cards, drawings from second grade. He found one, a crayon sketch of him and his mom holding hands under a crooked tree. Her name in scribbled letters above, Mommy. His name below, Oliver. He ran back and placed it in her lap. "Please," he said. "This is real. I'm real." She stared at it. Her lips moved. "Oliver." Then tears spilled from her eyes. The humming stopped, just for a second. A gap in the song. Then the pine singer screamed. Not out loud. Inside their walls. Inside their minds. The sound like ancient anger twisted into noise. Furniture rattled. The glass on the mantel cracked. The lights flickered. The photo of Oliver's father shattered in its frame. His mom dropped the drawing. "Get away from me," she cried, backing toward the stairs. "Mom? I don't know you. I don't want to know you." Her voice broke. She clutched her head. They're pulling everything away." She collapsed against the banister. Her eyes rolled back, and she whispered the tune. The Pinesinger's tune. Oliver knelt beside her, sobbing. Don't let him take you. But she was already humming, already fading. Then something inside Oliver cracked. Not broke, cracked open. And the thing that spilled out wasn't fear anymore. It was fire. He stood, staggered to his room, and opened the drawer where he kept the figure, the carved child that had once appeared under his pillow. He held it tight. If I'm going back, he said aloud, I'm not going alone. The closet behind him creaked open again. When he turned, the walls melted. Not literally, but visually. They shimmered, peeled like layers of skin, revealing the trees beyond. Endless, black, pulsing with memory. He stepped through, back into the forest, back into the hollow. This time the woods were awake. They whispered his name with every leaf, every sway of branch. Oliver, Oliver. The path bent before him, clearing away like an obedient servant. He walked it, deeper, deeper, until the air grew heavy with the scent of pine and sorrow. The circle of stones was waiting, but now there were dozens of children within it, all humming, all slowly fading into the air as though made of smoke and lullabies. And at the center, the Pinesinger, fully revealed. He no longer wore the shape of Oliver's father, or anyone familiar. He was tall, inhuman, a cathedral of bone and silk, woven from forgotten names and unfinished lullabies. His face remained blank, but voices echoed from inside him like a choir of the lost. You came back, the Pinesinger said, but you brought something with you. Oliver held up the carved figure. I remember, he said. The Pinesinger tilted his head. That memory is not enough. I didn't bring one, Oliver said. He placed the figure on the ground. I brought them all. The children turned. Their eyes glowed with light, not haunting but memory. Their outlines grew clearer, realer, like they were being remembered. One by one they looked at Oliver, and they whispered, You know our names. And he did, somehow. He whispered them back. Aaron Fields, May Whitaker, Connor Reeves. Each name he said was a bell, and each bell broke a thread in the Pinesinger's song. The stones cracked, the ground shook, the Pinesinger staggered. No, his voice shattered into hundreds. You are meant to forget. Oliver shouted now. I choose to remember. The children stepped from the circle, and they sang, not his tune. There's songs of birthdays, of laughter, of mothers and fathers and bike rides and pillow forts and snow days. And with every note, the Pinesinger shrieked, fading, fading, until he was nothing but a ripple in the air. And then, gone, silence. No humming, no song, just wind, real wind, rustling real trees, under a real sky. Oliver stood alone in the hollow. The stones were gone. The sap on his hands had dried to dust, and his name felt safe in his mouth. He closed his eyes and whispered, Take me home. When he opened them, he was lying in his bed. Morning sun spilled across the floor. The smell of breakfast drifted in from the kitchen, and his mom was standing in the doorway, holding the drawing. Good morning, she said, her voice soft and real. Hungry? Oliver nodded, too choked up to speak. She smiled. I made peanut butter and jelly, just how you like it. He held the memory tight, like a stone in his palm, and this time, he knew he'd never let it go. Part 6, The Cracks That Remain. For 3 days the world felt normal. Too normal. Oliver woke to sunlight. His mom made his favorite lunches again, apple slices and peanut butter sandwiches cut into triangles like when he was little. At school, Miss Farrell smiled and remembered his name. Jace even nodded at him once in the hallway. No one whispered. No one hummed. The pines were just trees again. But Oliver knew better. He felt it in the way the air shifted when he walked too close to shadows. He saw it in the corners of mirrors, where something occasionally moved just a moment too late, like echoes out of sync with time. On the fourth night, he dreamed of the clearing. The circle of stones was gone, but something else remained. A pit, black, empty, breathing. When he woke, there was sap under his fingernails again. He tried to tell himself it was just leftover fear. Trauma, maybe. That was the word Miss Farrell used when she gave him extra time on his reading test. But then came the knock. 3 sharp raps on the back door. At 3:03 a.m. He didn't answer. He just stood at the top of the stairs and watched the door through the hallway window. No one was there. But on the glass, written in something dark and sticky, were 3 words. "We remember you." That morning he didn't eat. His mom noticed. "You okay, baby?" He hesitated, then nodded. But inside something felt wrong. Like his skin didn't quite fit anymore. Later that day, someone knocked at the classroom door. The principal walked in with a boy at his side. The room fell silent. Miss Farrell gasped, hand to her chest. "Connor?" she whispered. Oliver froze. He knew that name. He'd spoken it in the hollow. The boy looked around, dazed, pale. He didn't seem to recognize anyone, not even Miss Farrell, who knelt down to eye level. You've been missing for 4 years, she said, her voice breaking. Connor blinked. "Where's the music?" he asked softly. Then, "I don't like it when it's quiet." That night it rained. Oliver stood at the window watching drops race down the glass. In the reflection he saw a shape behind him. He turned. Nothing there. But the whisper returned. Different now. Lower. Deeper. Not Pinesinger. Something older. "You touched the root." The room darkened. Every corner grew longer. The shadows began to curl inward. And for a moment, Oliver saw a shape form in the dark. Not a person. Not even a creature. A structure. A massive form of twisted branches and limbs, held together by whispers and the names no one dares to say aloud. It pulsed once, and then, gone. Oliver fell to his knees, choking on the air. The next morning, another child returned. This time a girl named May. She showed up at her family's doorstep wearing the same dress she disappeared in 6 years ago, except it was spotless, untouched by time, and she wouldn't stop humming. That afternoon, Miss Farrell called Oliver to her desk. She shut the door. Her eyes were red, tired. "I need to ask you something," she said, voice trembling. He nodded. "These kids, Connor, May, they were gone. Presumed dead. Now they're back and..." She looked away. "You saw something in the forest, didn't you?" Oliver stayed silent. She continued. "When I was your age, I had a friend named Ellie. She vanished on a field trip in 5th grade. Right after she told me about a man who sang lullabies in the trees." She leaned in. "Tell me the truth. Is the Pinesinger back?" Oliver shook his head. "No," he whispered. "Something worse." That night he couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the hollow. Only now it wasn't empty. The pit in the center was growing, and from it rose a tower of bones and branches. It pulsed with memories, some not his own. He saw through the eyes of lost children, through trees that watched, through roots that whispered across generations. The Pinesinger wasn't the end. He was the invitation. The real force behind it all was still waking up, and it remembered Oliver's name. On Sunday, he visited the edge of the forest again. The same broken fence, the same stillness. But this time he didn't cross. He just watched, and the trees watched back. Then someone stepped up beside him. Jace. His hoodie was soaked. His eyes rimmed red. "They say I never had a little brother," he said. Oliver turned slowly. "What? My parents? They act like they only had one kid. But I remember him. James. He was 3. Went missing 5 years ago." He pointed to the woods. He followed the song. Oliver's voice cracked. "I brought some of them back." Jace shook his head. "No, you didn't. You just opened the door wider." That night, Oliver heard his name in his mother's voice, but she wasn't speaking. She was asleep, whispering in her dreams, repeating the tune backward. He recorded it, played it in reverse. It wasn't music, it was a warning. The pines are not the roots. The roots go deeper. Part 7. Beneath the hollow. The forest wasn't asleep anymore. It was waiting. Oliver stood at the tree line with Jace beside him. Neither spoke. They didn't need to. The air said enough, still and thick like a breath held too long. Behind them, the town was unraveling. People forgetting names. Children returning from nowhere. Shadows flickering in daylight. And worst of all, the song had changed. It was no longer the pine singer's lullaby. It was deeper, older, and it sounded like roots cracking beneath the earth. "We go tonight," Jace said. Oliver nodded. No plan, just necessity. They packed flashlights, notebooks, snacks they wouldn't eat. Oliver carried the carved wooden figure in his coat pocket, its edges worn smooth by fear. Jace brought a crowbar. "Just in case," he muttered. They stepped through the fence at 11:11 p.m. The woods swallowed them instantly. No path, no moon, just trees that leaned in too far, branches shaped like reaching hands. The deeper they went, the more the woods bent around them, twisting like they remembered who passed through. "Something's wrong," Jace whispered. "It's remembering us too fast." They arrived at the hollow by instinct more than memory. The circle of stones was no longer there. In its place was a spiral staircase of roots, descending into the ground. The center pulsed with light, red and slow, like a heartbeat beneath skin. The tower from Oliver's dream had grown. It spiraled upward, made of memory fragments and bone, old toys, shoes, birthday candles melted to stubs. A cathedral built from things lost. Without speaking, they stepped down. One stair creaked with the sound of a mother's sob. Another whispered the lyrics of a forgotten lullaby. Each step felt like sinking into someone else's mind. After a dozen turns, the light vanished. They clicked on their flashlights, but the beams hit fog. Memory fog. The gold, glittering like ash. It clung to skin, to thought, to time. Jace coughed. "I forgot my name for a second." Oliver didn't answer. He was starting to forget what night it was, what year, where this all started. They reached the bottom. A wide, circular chamber opened before them, hollowed from the earth. Roots coiled up the walls, pulsing. And at the center, the memory root. It wasn't a tree, not anymore. It was a vein, fat and twitching, split open and dripping memories into a glowing pool. Images flickered across its surface. Faces, houses, songs, toys, smiles, all dissolving into the mud. The pool burbled softly, and then spoke. "You've come to remember what you were never meant to keep." The voice came from the root itself, from every drop of memory it consumed. Oliver stepped closer. "We remember them. We brought them back. Then you unbalanced the forgetting." Jace pointed the crowbar at the pool. "So what? You're like the brainstem of all this." The root pulsed, amused. "I'm not the singer. I am what feeds the song. The pine singer was my breath. You woke me when you screamed into memory." Oliver's grip tightened around the wooden figure in his pocket. He remembered what the boy in the circle had told him. "You can break the song if you anchor your memory, But now the song had changed. Now he needed to cut the source. "Why do you take them?" Oliver asked. "Why do you erase?" The root pulsed again, slower now. "Because forgetting is mercy. Memory is rot. Pain. Lost. You cling to ghosts and call it love. I offer silence." "Silence isn't peace," Oliver snapped. "It's just erasure." The room trembled. Roots shot from the walls. Jace swung the crowbar, knocking one aside. Another wrapped around his leg, yanking him off his feet. Oliver ran to him, flashlight in one hand, figure in the other. "Name yourself," Oliver shouted. "What?" Jace grunted, kicking free. "Say your full name." "Jason Caleb Weber." The roots recoiled. The chamber screamed, not sound but memory fracturing. Names were power here. To remember yourself was to be immune. Oliver turned toward the root. He pressed the carved figure to the glowing pool. The memories inside recoiled. "What is that?" the voice demanded. "A gift," Oliver said. "From the first boy who wouldn't forget." The wood cracked. The figure dissolved. And from it a voice echoed, small, young, defiant. "I was loved. I was real." The pool ignited. Memory flared like fire. Flashes of birthdays, arguments, lullabies, scraped knees, whispered secrets in blanket forts. The root writhed. "Stop." But it was too late. The song reversed. The silence cracked. Jace screamed, covering his ears. Oliver stood firm, because he wanted to remember all of it. Even the pain, even the loss. The chamber began to collapse. Roots shriveled. Mud cracked. The tower above groaned and folded inward like a dying lung. Jace grabbed Oliver. "We have to go." They ran, back up the spiral of breaking roots. The fog parted for them now, afraid. At the top, the forest was shuddering. The trees screamed in the language of the wind, and behind them the hollow caved in. Gone. They didn't speak until they crossed the fence, until they touched the grass of their world again. Jace fell to his knees. Oliver looked back. The trees swayed gently, like they'd never moved. The song was gone, but the silence wasn't comforting. It was loaded, waiting, watching, remembering. Part 8. What Remains After Memory. The forest was quiet for days. No humming, no missing children, no messages written in sap. Oliver walked through school like a ghost in reverse. Now people noticed him. Jace sat with him at lunch. Miss Farrell smiled, tired but warm. And his mother? She remembered everything. His name, his birthday, the song she used to sing to him before bed. She even framed the old crayon drawing and hung it above the mantel. But something still wasn't right. Not really. Sometimes when Oliver closed his eyes, he saw the root. Even though it was gone, he could still feel its pulse under the ground, like something dreaming beneath the floor of the world, waiting to wake again. One afternoon, as the sky dimmed into orange and the wind picked up fallen leaves, Oliver visited the edge of the woods. Just to look, just to make sure. Jace showed up beside him 10 minutes later. "Can't stay away, huh?" he asked. Oliver didn't answer. He was watching the trees too closely. "You think it's really over?" Jace said. "No," Oliver whispered, "but I think we pushed it back." For how long? Oliver didn't know. Behind them, someone called out, "Hey, Oliver." They turned. It was Miss Farrell. She waved them over. "Come see this." They jogged across the field. In front of the school, a truck had pulled up. Children were climbing out, blinking in the light, clutching blankets. Half a dozen of them. The ones who had disappeared. But something about them was wrong. Not dangerous, just distant. Their eyes were cloudy, like they were seeing through glass. One girl sat on the curb, hugging her knees, humming a broken tune backward. A boy smiled too wide. Another whispered a name that wasn't his own. "They don't remember us," Oliver said. Jace nodded. "They're not supposed to be here." That night, Oliver opened his notebook and wrote everything he remembered. From the first whisper, to the pine zinger, to the hollow and the root. He wrote it all. Even the parts that hurt, especially those. When he finished, he left the notebook on the windowsill. "Just in case," he whispered. Then he shut the blinds. Weeks passed. The air grew colder. Halloween came and went. Then Thanksgiving. December rolled in like frost. On the first snow of winter, Oliver found another pine cone on his pillow. Sticky, still warm. But this time there was something inside. He cracked it open carefully. Folded inside was a strip of old paper. A name was written in red ink. Oliver Haynes. Below it, a second line. "The forest remembers." He ran downstairs, heart hammering. "Mom?" She looked up from the kitchen, smiled, but didn't speak. Oliver stepped closer. "Say my name." She blinked. Her face twitched. "What?" she asked. "My name," he repeated. "Please." Her brow furrowed. She opened her mouth, closed it. Then the humming started, soft, from the faucet, from the floorboards, from her throat. Oliver backed away. "No." She just smiled, eyes distant. "I never liked silence anyway." That night, Oliver dreamed again. Not of the hollow, but of a town made of memories. Empty houses, lights on in windows, children walking in loops, forever young. And beneath it all, deep below the dream, the root was growing back. When he woke, he wasn't in his bed. He was in the forest. Not the real one, the other one, the one that grew inside minds. Trees of thought, leaves made from names. He walked a path of playground chalk and old toys. Every step echoed like a memory slipping from someone's lips. Ahead he saw a lantern. It swung slowly on a branch made of bone, and beneath it something crouched. A shape, small, familiar. It was him, younger, alone. The younger Oliver looked up. "Why did you leave?" he asked. Oliver knelt. "I didn't want to forget," he said. "But forgetting is easy," the younger him replied. Oliver nodded. "I know. That's why I remember for both of us." They sat in silence, until the trees around them began to hum again. When he woke, the carving had returned to his pocket, but it had changed. Now it held two figures, hand in hand. In the real world, everything continued. Kids returned to their homes. Parents tried to pretend everything was okay. Jace moved away in spring. No warning, no goodbye. Miss Farrell took a leave of absence. Oliver's mom sometimes stared into mirrors like she was waiting to see someone else. And Oliver? He waited too. He kept the notebook close. He watched the pines when no one else did. And when someone whispered in class or forgot their own name, he knew it was starting again. He didn't cry. He didn't panic. He just wrote the name down, folded it into paper, and planted it in the ground near the edge of the forest, where memory still breathes, because the pines don't forget. They wait, they listen, they grow, and someone always needs to remember.
And that was tonight's tale from the Shadowed Tales archive. If it left a mark on your mind, if the silence feels heavier now, then the story did what it was meant to do. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the darkness. New stories are always on their way. Until then, keep the lights low and the doors locked.